Mr. Sergeant of Arms, invite the members into the chamber and close the doors. I hereby declare the House of Representatives of the 114th General Assembly of the State of Tennessee now in session. Will the members please stand? With the visitors in the gallery please stand and remain standing through the Pledge of Allegiance. Representative Hemmer will introduce the chaplain of the day. Representative Hemmer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my honor to be here to introduce our Reverend of the Day on this very somber day that we have, remembering the 2-year anniversary of Covenant tragedy. This past Sunday at church, we had a memorial service per se, and had a really interesting sermon. And the message was shine light, find joy, and press on. And I think about pressing on. I don't think about moving on. I think about doing what we need to do as members, as public servants, to serve our community, to make it safer, to make it better, and serve our constituents. And I'm honored today to be with Reverend Sam McLaughlin. She's a senior pastor at Belmead UMC. Previously, Sam served with Mountaintop, a nonprofit dedicated to rural life ministry in the Cumberland Mountains of Tennessee. Sam has a desire to make the whole community feel welcome and included in all areas of the church. She is married to Mark and has 2 children, Lewis and Madeline. I'm honored to represent them in the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hemmer, for having me here today. Will you join me in an attitude of prayer? God, there are some days that we find ourselves showing up for our regularly scheduled programming without expectation that you will break in and do a new thing. We go through our familiar patterns and routines without even asking you where you are leading us or how we might create meaningful change. We do not want to become numb to our roles as leaders, numb to our tasks, numb to our families. You have given us a responsibility, a sacred nurturing of one another. And each and every day, we need your endurance to take it seriously. So we begin today with a posture of openness, a posture of imagination, a posture of boldness. We invite you into the inner workings of our heart, mind, soul, and spirit. Sweep through us as an energizing and electrifying force. We want to hear your voice and heed it. We want to paint portraits of possibility for our community. It is no surprise to you, God, that in each of our brokenness, ego protection, and staunch belief that we are always right, we find ourselves tightly woven around our own ways of thinking. We need you to unravel the threads of our own ideals and idols. We need you to bulldoze and break through the barriers and blockades among us. We need you to tear down and topple over our pride and our prejudice. We need you to shake us down and stir us up so that we focus on who and what truly matters. Our failure to come together in any role that we carry only results in further harm and further tragedy. And God, on this day, we are not numb to the collective mourning of our community. We grieve that 6 beautiful and innocent lives were lost by gun violence on March 27th, 2023, at the Covenant School. We honor and remember these loved ones by calling out their names and remembering their witnesses. The thoughtfulness, gift-giving, and timeless truths shared by Dr. Catherine Kuntz. The kindness, cheerfulness, and morning greetings of Mike Hill. The fierce love of people and teaching of Cynthia Peak. The tenderness, joyfulness, and sunshine of Evelyn Dickhouse. The playfulness, competitiveness, and spunk of Hallie Scruggs. The curiosity, wit, and bravery of Will Kinney. God, today we pray for their family members and the horror that they will relive. You tell us that you are close to the brokenhearted and save those who are crushed in spirit. May your word be fulfilled this day. May you collect their tears and envelop them in the wide wingspan of your grace. May you grant each of these family members pockets of peace and memories of joy. May you breathe light and laughter into their homes once again. We pray for students, teachers, and parents who are survivors. We pray that you would silence and still their fears, anxieties, and traumas. We pray that they might find a way to keep on living. We pray for every person in this room who has lost a loved one to gun violence, who has hidden in a closet, who has had to protect their students from gunfire, who is tired of active shooter training. God, we know that you want so much more for your people. We know that this is not the way you intended for us to live. In the face of such tragedy and devastation, it is easy to hand ourselves over to helplessness and hopelessness, but our numbness only leads to more death. We each have a part to play in actualizing the preferred future you have for this world. So let none of us, wherever we are today, go on like this is business as usual. It is unusual and unacceptable to live in fear every day that our children will not return home from school. Let us not hand ourselves over to fatalism or fear, because you have given us sensible and sympathetic solutions. Let us not be overcome and overwhelmed by evil, but let us overcome and overwhelm evil with good. When we see no way of getting along and moving forward, part our ideologies and theologies that separate us, sever the illusion that we cannot cooperate, and let us walk together through the waters to freedom. By your power, we can care for one another with tenderness and tenacity. We can step up and see beyond ourselves. We can legislate liberation and love. Amen.
Representative Hemmer will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Attention, salute, pledge. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Speaker, 91 members present.
Let the journal reflect Representative Bain, Kumar, and Camper are excused. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Welcoming, honoring, and announcements.
Welcome, honor, and announcements. Representative Slater, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I request that the Sergeant at Arms escort our guest into the chamber.
Mr. Sergeant of Arms, please escort the guests to the well. Representative Slater, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I am honored today and also humbled to introduce to you Trooper Adam Cothran. Trooper Cothran, while on duty last July 19th, was viciously attacked by two convicted felons in what we would consider to be a routine traffic stop. You know, oftentimes we make this statement about our law enforcement members that when they put on the uniform, they don't know whether or not they're going to come home to their families. And on that tragic evening, it was the case when it came to Trooper Cothran. His family is here with us today, and I can't imagine the hours and the days and still the trials that they go through as they continue to support their family member. With him here today is his wife, Jenna, his two sons, Marshall and Maverick, his father, Wayland, who also serves in law enforcement. He's the chief deputy of the Trousdale County Sheriff's Department. His mother, Jennifer, who serves in the Trousdale County school system. His brother, Grant, is unable to be here with us today. He had planned to be here, but he serves with the Lebanon Police Department and was called on to night shift last night, was unable to be here. And then a sister-in-law is also here with him, representing his youngest brother. And then also his grandmother, Helen, is here. And I can only imagine what this family faced, not only on that night, but in the hours that followed that evening. These two individuals, as he approached the car, one of them shot through the passenger window. The bullet struck him and did not go all the way through. It was feared for quite some time that it had lodged in the spinal area. As you can see today, he, at this point, is confined to a wheelchair. But there he was left for dead on I-40 in Putnam County. Fortunately, the Putnam County Sheriff's Department responded and literally saved his life as these convicted felons fled the scene. There was a manhunt that ensued, and we're certainly thankful for all of the law enforcement agencies that captured these individuals. We're thankful to the Kentucky State Police, where one of the individuals fled. We're certainly thankful for the rest of THP and TBI. Also, Metro Nashville Police Department, who apprehended the other individual who had come to Nashville. I'm very thankful to say that those individuals that are responsible for this are currently incarcerated, waiting trial. Unfortunately, neither of these individuals should have been out on our highways and on our streets. In 2016, one of the individuals was convicted of second-degree murder and was sentenced but was let out early. He would still be in prison today had it not been for his early release. The second individual was sentenced for a crime that he committed in 2017, and he too would also still be incarcerated, and this tragedy would not have happened. One of the purposes of incarceration is to prevent further crimes from taking place. And as a legislative body, we should understand and recognize that incarcerating those who commit crimes is one of our first duties to the citizens of the state of Tennessee and to our law enforcement officers that we recognize today. There's still a long road for Trooper Cothran. I was able to see a video, and maybe some of you did as well, from earlier this month when he was able to move his leg further than he has been since the night of the tragedy. But I'm so thankful for a God-fearing family who understands the importance of prayer. In fact, this morning when I met Helen, his grandmother, she said, "It is a miracle." And I agree with you, Grandma. It is a miracle. It is the power of prayer that has worked in the lives of Trooper Cothran and his family. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize at this time Chief Deputy Waylon Cothran to make a few comments about his son.
Yes, sir. He's recognized.
Thank you, sir. Like I said, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Waylon Cothran, Chief Deputy of Trousdale County. Adam's mother, Jennifer, is here with us. I spent 39 years serving the people of Hartsville, Trousdale County as law enforcement. His mother has spent that much time in the school system. Adam is the oldest of my three sons. In July of 2015, he swore before God and man to uphold the law for this state and to help keep the peace for this great state. Adam, his family, and his friends has sacrificed a lot for that promise that he made to the people of the state of Tennessee. And we want to humbly thank God for his grace and mercy and his plan of salvation has allowed us to be here today. I'd sincerely like to thank Governor Lee, Senator Hale, Representative Slater, House and Senate members, Commissioner Long, Colonel Perry, members of the Highway Patrol, and especially the people of this great state of Tennessee and Hartsville, Trousdale County for the prayers and well wishes and heartfelt comfort that we've received from the people of this state. It's been a long journey, and I'm proud of my son. I'm glad he's still able to be with us. We're still able to laugh and talk, and we lean on the power of this state and the medical professionals to repair him to good health as well as possible. And I pray that he'd be able to stay in the center of God's will the rest of his life and do what he'd had him to do, and that we'd be able to help you in some way. We sincerely appreciate this time this morning to recognize Adam before this body. And as a member of the Tennessee Highway Patrol State Trooper, he made a commitment to the people of Tennessee, and he's going to keep that commitment. Please keep him in your thoughts and prayers as he works to regain his health. And thank you, and may God bless you in this state.
I see some of the members of our assembly that are former law enforcement that are already here standing with Trooper Cothran. If there are other members, I'd invite them to come. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to recognize Senator Hale to make a few comments.
Senator, you're recognized.
It's so inadequate, anything that we can say or do in light of the service that you provided to our state and to our community. So I really have very few words, but to say thank you, bless you and your family. Your attitude is so appalling. It's so great. And I'm just grateful for you and just extremely sorry for the difficulties you're having to go through. But from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you and we give God the glory.
Mr. Speaker, I'd ask that Trooper Cothran be recognized.
Yes, sir. He's recognized.
I'd first like to thank God for being with me through this ordeal, this situation that I'm in. I'm truly humbled to be here this morning, Representative and Senator, for getting this resolution for me. Each month I go to therapy 3 days a week, and each month there's progress that's been made. And I'm truly thankful for that. Thankful for the therapist over at Vanderbilt and Shepherd Center for getting me to where I am today. I'm continuing to get well, and I truly look forward to getting back in the uniform. That's my goal, is to get back in the uniform of the Highway Patrol. I'm thankful for Commissioner Long and Colonel Perry for the support I've been given, and all the Highway Patrol, and all the thoughts and prayers are greatly appreciated. And like I said, I'm truly humbled and thankful to be here today. Thankful for each and every one of you in the great state of Tennessee.
join us in the well for a photo, please.
Representative Farmer, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I request that the Sergeant at Arms escort our guests into the chamber.
Mr. Sergeant of Arms, please escort the guests to the well. Representative Farmer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I introduce to you the Sevier County High School Smoky Bears 5A State Championship football team. And I thought it was only fitting that Representative Ashley, myself, Senator Sill, and Senator Sutherland have these young men along with their coaches here today, Todd Loveday and company, who led them to a state championship. I thought it was fitting that we show them that hard work, dedication, and discipline means something here in the state of Tennessee. And we congratulate you all for what you've done. We're here for you. Every member of this body is proud to see what you've done and the work ethic that you've all shown. So with that, Mr. Speaker, would you mind if we recognize Coach Todd Loveday?
Coach, you're recognized.
Thank you guys for having us. Great year we had, a lot of community support. Kind of a small version of what the state of Tennessee is all about, I believe. Family, teamwork, the togetherness. These guys will remember for a lifetime. And the football, the greatest sport going on. We believe that, and what it takes to be successful at this sport, and a lot of unselfish attitudes on this team. And we're proud of them. We love them, and we'll give it another shot coming up. So thank you guys for having us. We have great representation in Sevier County, and best state going, Tennessee. Go Bears.
Representative Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you mind joining us in the well for a picture?
Yes.
Thanks, sir.
Representative McCalman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if you would please welcome to the House today one of our Williamson County School Board members, Miss Donna Clemens, and a good friend of mine, an advocate for children with disabilities, Miss Christy Bailey, up here in the gallery right here. So please make them feel welcome.
Representative Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to welcome back to the chamber our friend and colleague and my seatmate, Representative Kevin Raper.
Representative Towns.
Mr. Speakers and members, thank you. Absolutely turning out to be a gorgeous day, a beautiful day. I want to acknowledge a gentleman that started here about 30 years ago. He's the last of the Mohican of the Capitol Police. He's retiring today after 30 years. Robert Jackson, he's there. Raise your hand, Robert. He's up in the gallery there. Now, Robert started with some of the long haulers back in the day. He's the last of the Capitol Police. They converted over to THP. He and Birmingham did not transfer over. So when he leaves, that's the end of that particular area. And they took care of us and did a great job for the state, great job for the members. And so we wish you well and longevity in your retirement. And once again, y'all give him another round of applause. Thank you, sir.
Lear Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a couple of fantastic pages with us today. Miss Lily Erfer and Zachariah Reyes are right over here on the right. Please make them feel welcome. Appreciate y'all helping us out today.
Speaker Pro Tem Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You all please welcome around 15 Tennessee Promise students from across the state to the House today for a visit. We're all very proud of all you do and honored to have you with us. Please stand and let us recognize you. Thank you.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, Monday, March the 31st is the Dress Like Joe Towns Day. I've gotten a lot of questions and inquiries. You know, I gave a hint on last Monday. Corduroy is good. Another hint, colors, don't worry about it. Okay? Patterns, don't worry about it. That's right. So I need everyone to participate. Chairman Clemens and I have this already, and we will be here on Monday. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Powers, you're recognized. At Chairman Fazen's desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a page here today, Miss Layla Reynolds, that's over here. So please give her a big hand. Her mom and dad are up here. Brian Reynolds celebrating his 48th birthday today, too. So just welcome them here, please. Thank you.
Representative Capley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, Representative Sapicki and I would like to recognize some students from Spring Hill and Hampshire High Schools from Murray County. They're up here in the gallery to my right. Y'all please stand up. Let's make them feel welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Hicks of Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I have some friends from back home. If they would stand to be recognized, I have County Commissioner Mr. Robbie Palmer and his wife Katie. Would you please make them feel welcome?
Representative Chisholm.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, we can't get much done around here without our legislative assistance. So therefore, today, I want you all to help me wish a happy birthday to my legislative assistant, Tracy. I just want to say thank you for everything you do.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Introduction to resolutions.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That all resolutions properly filed be introduced pursuant to rule number 17 in place of the consent calendar referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Senate Joint Resolutions congratulatory and memorializing.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That all Senate joint resolution congratulatory and memorializing and allowing that has to be placed in the consent calendar pursuant to rule number 17.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Resolutions lying over.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That all resolutions line over be referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Introduction to bills.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That House Bills 1,437 and 1,438 be introduced and passed on first consideration.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Senate bills on first consideration.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that Senate Bills 26, 124, 147, 202, 231, 233, 346, 406, 536, 554, 563, 729, 741, 863, 941, 946, 1,034, 1,068, 1,112, 1,178, 1,310, 1,311, and 1,368 transmitted by the Senate be held on the desk in third consideration of the companion House bills.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Senate bills on second consideration. House bills on second consideration.
Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move that House Bills 1,436 be passed on second consideration and be held on the desk and referred to the appropriate standing committee.
Without objection, so ordered. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Petitions and memorials, reports from standing committees, reports from select committees, calendars. Mr. Speaker, the House has a consent calendar.
Chair Lane Moody, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of the consent calendar on third and final consideration in keeping with Rule 50.
Chair Lane moves passage of the consent calendar, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, any objections been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no objections filed.
Anyone seeking recognition on the consent calendar? Seeing none, we're voting on the consent calendar. All members in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Doggett aye, Sapicki aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays, 2 present, not voting.
Having received a constitutional majority, I declare consent calendar passed without objection. The most for considered table. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, the House has a regular calendar.
Call first bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1227 by Chairman Hicks relative to higher education. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Chairman Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute conform to Senate Bill 1368.
Chairman Hicks moves substitute form of Senate Bill 1368, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Chairman Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 1368 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Hicks moves passage of Senate Bill 1368 on third and final consideration, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House Education Committee Amendment number 1. Mr. Speaker, same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The same as the Senate amendment, so I move to withdraw and defer to the sponsor for explanation.
Without objection, committee amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chairman Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, House Bill 1227 proposes language to modernize current processes to allow for maximum efficiency in THEC's work in Tennessee's higher education landscape without sacrificing the state's touch point on accountability and stewardship. This legislation further provides some clarity and alignment to historical practice to aspects of THEC's student-facing functions and responsibility. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Hicks renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1368 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member votes, any member wish to change their vote? Heard aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 95, no nays.
Senate Bill 1368 having received the constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. The most for considered table. Next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 654 by Hicks of Washington relative to health insurance. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 0437.
Representative Hicks moves substitute and conform to Senate Bill 437, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Hicks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 0437 on third and final consideration.
Representative Hicks moves passage of Senate Bill 437 on third and final consideration, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call for First Amendment.
House Insurance Committee Amendment number 1, same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Vice Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to withdraw.
Without objection, committee number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Hicks, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 437 is a model legislation to help physicians build psychiatric collaborative care model practices and will ensure that insurance companies will cover mental health services provided through those types of care models. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Hicks renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 437 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 96, no nays.
Senate Bill 437 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. Most read serious table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1304 by Representative Hill and others relative to insurance. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1270.
Representative Hill moves to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1270 with properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 1270 on third and final consideration.
Representative Hill moves passage of Senate Bill 1270 on third and final consideration. By second, Mr. Clerk, call for First Amendment.
House Insurance Committee Amendment number 1, same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Chair Lady Hilton Haynes, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same as Senate amendment, move to withdraw.
Without objection, committee amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This legislation repeals mini COBRA. It expands insurance options for farms and cleans up a couple of technical corrections in the code. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Hill renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1270 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 95, no nays, 1 president not voting.
Senate Bill 1270 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. Most read serious table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 604 by Leader Lamberth relative to Alcoholic Beverage Commission.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 604 on third and final consideration.
Leader Lamberth moves passage by second. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House State and Local Government Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment rewrites the bill. I move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for further explanation.
Chairman Crawford moves adoption of committee amendment number 1. Probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of committee amendment number 1 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a bill for the ABC. It just allows them to better investigate when a crash might have happened due to intoxication on alcohol. With that, I renew my motion.
Leader Lamberth renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 604 as amended vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays.
House Bill 604 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. Most read serious table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1315 by Leader Lamberth relative to ignition interlock devices. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1299.
Leader Lamberth moves substitute and form Senate Bill 1299, probably seconded without objection. So ordered. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move passage of Senate Bill 1299 on third and final consideration.
Leader Lamberth moves passage of Senate Bill 1299 on third and final consideration, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call it First Amendment.
House Judiciary Committee Amendment number 1, Mr. Speaker, same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman Farmer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same as Senate Amendment. Move to withdraw.
Without objection, committee amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill comes from the Department of Safety and gives a little more flexibility when someone's on an ignition interlock device and when they get it calibrated and how that process works. With that, I renew my motion.
Leader Lamberth renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1299, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 95, one nay.
Senate Bill 1299 having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. Most reconsider is tabled. Representative Doggett, for what purpose?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Remember, I am out of order, but I want you to help welcome the Giles County Adult Leadership Group that is up here in the balcony. If y'all would stand up, please. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 825 by Representative Mayberry and others relative to internet safety.
Representative Mayberry, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 825 on third and final consideration.
Representative Mayberry moves passage. Second, Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Education Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment does rewrite the bill, so I move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for explanation.
Chairman White moves adoption of Committee Amendment number 1. Probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of Committee Amendment number 1, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. You adopted the next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Mayberry, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 825 requires the Department of Education to develop guidance for local LEAs and public charter schools to instruct students in grades 6 through 12 who are enrolled in an LEA or public charter school on social media, internet, and AI safety by January 2026. It establishes requirements for the social media internet safety guidelines. It begins in 2026-2027 school year, requires an LEA or public charter school to enroll students that are in any of the grades 6 to 12 to instruct students in grades 6 to 12 using the guidance developed by the Department of Education. It requires a parent or student of a student, or parent or guardian of a student who wishes to excuse parents or guardian student from a portion or all the social media, internet, or AI safety instructions. Excuse me. I renew my motion.
Representative Mayberry renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Is this your first bill?
Representative Mayberry.
This is not my first bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader Lamberth.
Thank you. Is this your second bill?
Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my second bill.
Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Have you spoken with the department on what this curriculum might look like or how long it's going to take to teach this with each of these grade levels?
Representative Mayberry.
Yeah, so the Department of Education, they're going to give guidance, as the bill describes in the curriculum. It'll cover time management, healthy digital habits, mental health risk and addiction, privacy and personal safety, spotting online predators and cyberbullying, understanding AI information and media manipulation. And it'll even go on to highlight positive uses as career building, connecting with families, and educational opportunities.
Representative Johnson.
And I do appreciate what you're trying to do and understand that, but my concern is that is a lot that we are adding to the curriculum, but we're not adding any time to teach this. I don't know. Teachers right now cannot get in everything they need to do. It's not possible. And you know, we constantly want them to meet their standards and get good grades. But if we're cramming things into the day, but not allowing time for it or removing something else, it makes it impossible to get this done. We already ask teachers to do the impossible. But we are adding so much to the curriculum and to the same areas in like life skills, between what's in standards now to what's going to be after we pass all these bills adding to that curriculum, we're going to triple the number of standards, and they still have only that limited amount of time to teach 3 times more standards. It's just not possible.
Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative, for sharing those concerns. This is something that I believe is very important for our youth of our state. For those who don't know, I run an after-school program that primarily goes from high school and middle school. They bus them over to us. I've done it for several years now. Our students don't understand, in a large part, how they put their information out there. It's out there forever. This bill is going to highlight that to them. I'm concerned about our students. One piece of information I received right before I submitted this bill, specifically around AI, there was a young man, Swell Stetzer, and I would love to put this out there, that he was from Florida, and he ended up developing a relationship with an AI bot. And sadly, through the course of that relationship, that was obviously one-sided, the AI bot convinced this young man in Florida to commit suicide, 14 years old, to be with me. And that broke my heart, seeing that, added AI into the bill after that fact. But we need our young people to understand the seriousness of this and understand the benefits of this. And that's why I brought this legislation today.
Representative Johnson.
And I do understand that. It is tragic. That information needs to get out there. What do you want to remove from the curriculum that's currently there to make time to teach this information?
Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not giving guidance to our LEAs of what to remove, or I'm simply asking the Department of Education to give guidance on teaching these important lessons here. And with that, I'll renew my motion.
Representative Johnson.
Well, as I said, you named a lot of different skills that have to be taught, and that's going to take a lot of time. Something has to be removed from the curriculum to require this to be done. And that is my concern.
Representative Mayberry. All good.
Renew my motion.
Chairman Clemens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, sponsor. I appreciate this. And, we all know that teens are struggling with these types of issues and require this instruction. However, the points raised by my colleague from Knox County are definitely merited here with regards to time limitations on our teachers and instructors. However, my question is with regard to Section 2 of your bill on page 4 of the adopted amendment that makes the bill. You're seeking to limit the content accessible by students using internet access provided by the LEA to content that is age appropriate. And I think I want to get to the bottom of your intent for that provision as to whether or not we're going to be dictating what educational content is appropriate, or if there's other content that you're contemplating there. Because already in the statute of that provision that you're amending, there's already a provision that seeks to prevent access by students to material that the LEA deems to be harmful to juveniles. And that would seem to be the same or similar to your subsection G there. So I'm curious as to what you see as the distinction between those two and what your intent is for that subsection G that differs from the current subsection B in that statute.
Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the overall heart and intent behind this is just to provide protection for our students, age appropriate. Within this bill as well, we're asking that social media is not being used during school hours unless it's specifically needed for instruction purposes. So we're just trying to put safety measures within our schools to protect our children.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate that, and I agree with that intent. My question is, I'm just trying to differentiate what your intent is here with the current subsection G with regards to limiting content to that which is age appropriate, which I have no issue with. I just want to know what content you're referring to there that differs from the current statute that seeks to prevent access by students to material or content that is harmful to juveniles. So I'm trying to figure out what the difference is between those two that you don't feel is covered by the current statute. Because my concern is that we're seeking to limit educational content that we may arbitrarily decide is not age appropriate, whether it's some scientific research, whether it's some facet or whatever, that wouldn't qualify as harmful to juveniles, but we may be seeking to say it's not age appropriate, just arbitrarily. So is there a distinction there? What content are you referring to? Is it educational or is it other societal content that you're seeking to prevent them from?
Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Specifically, I am, my goal here is just to make sure that we're setting the system for our children, to make sure they are not being exposed to things that they should not at the age in which they are at. So being age appropriate in that regard. But I don't have any specific thing I'm trying to block necessarily as any type of agenda. That's not what I'm trying to do here.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm afraid that if this were ever debated, or if the Board of Education or the department is going to look at this, they're going to be stuck trying to figure out the difference between subsections B in the current code and subsection G of this law, and trying to figure out the expansive scope and the intent for why we've got two redundant provisions in there. And they could use that to do something which is not intended by your law, which I think the spirit of it is well intended. So that's my question. So thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Mayberry, I appreciate this piece of legislation, and I want to tell you why. There's not a day, not a minute, not a time that goes by that our kids aren't attacked, aren't targeted for products, for no telling what kind of stuff on social media. If they are exposed to things on social media that we can go into a store on, no parent would allow that person to walk into that store to have our kids exposed to for what they're exposed to on social media. So I am absolutely shocked that we believe, or that some people in this chamber would believe, that somehow our teachers wouldn't want to, one, learn a little bit of things for themselves, and then understand to have a conversation with their students to realize what they have on their phones, the danger that that poses. I know, I'm confident, I'm encouraged that I know our teachers across this state know that that's an important piece of what could be discussed inside that classroom. So I really appreciate you being in this piece of legislation, understanding that I have, and I know you have, confidence in our teachers and our Department of Education to provide them the tools to make sure that kids in this state travel the internet safely and are protected. And I appreciate you bringing this so that conversation is within our classrooms. So thank you very much for bringing this piece of legislation. I appreciate that.
Representative Mayberry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate your words, and that's exactly the intent behind the bill. I renew my motion.
Representative McCalman.
It's not broken. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and sponsor, again, to echo my colleague from Sumner County's comments. Thank you for bringing this bill. In 2023, the Surgeon General put out a report regarding the risks of social media. It found that adolescents, teens between the age of 13 to 17 who spent more than 3 hours a day on social media have double the risk for depression, anxiety, and other mental health disorders. They found that that same group, when it came to body image and self-appreciation, they found up a 46% decrease in how they viewed themselves by using social media. They found also that our kids are using social media on average, 96% on average, 3.5 hours a day. We need to educate our kids about the dangers. I appreciate you bringing this bill, so look forward to voting for it, sir. Good job.
Representative Sapicki.
Move previous question.
Previous question been called. Is there objection? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 825 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 88, 4 nays, 3 present, not voting.
House Bill 825, having received a constitutional majority, hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 421 by Speaker Pro Tem Marsh, relative to continuing education for members of utility district boards. Mr. Speaker, Senate bills on the desk.
Speaker Pro Tem Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 380.
Speaker Pro Tem Marsh moves to substitute and conform Senate Bill 380, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Speaker Pro Tem Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 380 on third and final consideration.
Speaker Pro Tem Marsh moves passage of Senate Bill 380 on third and final consideration, properly seconded. Ms. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House Commerce Committee Amendment number 1, same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized.
I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker. It's a fine amendment, but we must move to withdraw it anyway.
Without objection, Committee Amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Speaker Pro Tem Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill concerns utility commissioners. Currently, when they take office, they have to take 12 hours of training in the first year. And currently, they have to take an additional 12 hours in the next 3 years. What we're changing today is an additional 3 years. We're cutting that 12 down to 6. It also provides a way for a commissioner who has been not kicked off the board, I guess what you'd say. They've been not provided to be a commissioner anymore, to be reinstated after they've been kicked off by letting them take the test and the current commissioners approve them. With that, I'll renew my motion.
Speaker Pro Tem Marsh renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 380 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 93, 2 nays, 1 present, not voting.
Senate Bill 380, having received a constitutional majority, hereby declare passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 861 by Representative McCallum and others, relative to special education.
Representative McCallum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bills 861 on third and final consideration.
Representative McCallum moves passage, properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House Education Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're going to move to adopt and defer to the sponsor for explanation.
Chairman White moves adoption, Committee Amendment number 1, probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of Committee Amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative McCallum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, what House Bill 861 does is codify the current State Board of Education rules requiring an LEA to give notice of parents or guardians at least 10 days before an IEP hearing and provide a copy of the draft IEP at least 48 hours before the scheduled meeting. Additionally, the bill will require a copy of all evaluations and assessments taken for the purposes of the student's IEP to be provided to the parent or guardian. With that, I renew my motion and stand ready for questions.
Representative McCallum renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you. And I know in committee talked a little bit about most of the things in this are already required by federal law. There's one thing that's different, and that is sending home the psychological evaluation before the meeting. I heard from a lot of school psychologists who are very concerned with this, especially in an initial evaluation when they're evaluating to see if there is a disability. You send that paperwork home, and depending on what they have determined the disability is, it can be very shocking to parents. They will not necessarily understand that disability. They're going to come into that meeting angry. They're going to come into that meeting scared. They may remove their child because they don't, of what's in that report. So this is a report that should be given with the psychologist sitting there, explaining the report, going over it with the parent. I can tell you in 27 years of doing this, those initial evaluations can be traumatizing for parents. If they get that report without having it explained to them, this can be tough. But even when it's not an initial evaluation, Those reports need explanation, and we don't need parents coming in just or getting deeply upset about things in the report that they don't understand. So have you thought about sending out things except for those evaluations?
Representative McCalman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Johnson, respectfully, with regards to the federal government, I don't want to rely on federal government law. We should have it codified in Tennessee code. With regards to your concerns over this, I would posit that it's information on our kids. It's not information on the psychiatrist's kids. The parents should have the opportunity to make questions, read the material, come into that meeting. They may have concerns, they may not understand, but I think we should give parents more credit and allow them to formulate questions that they may have on that report. There's nothing that would prevent an LEA from, when they send that notification out the 10 days ahead of time saying, you're going to receive a report, formulate some questions, come into it. If there's something you don't understand, be ready to ask questions. We'd be happy to sit down and chat with you on it. So I think this is a good bill. It's a parental rights bill, and I would hope to have your support on it, ma'am.
Representative Johnson.
And I do understand, I don't have a problem with, restating it in state law, what we're doing at federal. I would totally support that. But because of the number of school psychologists that I heard from, because of being in these situations and seeing how traumatizing this can be for parents at many times, I just think there is a better way. And this is not, these parents aren't bad parents. They're just getting an information that they may or may not understand. Just because you would understand it doesn't mean that all parents would. And please realize that there are a lot of different folks out there from a lot of different backgrounds, and this is incredibly sensitive information. And what does it hurt to do those explanations? If the parents get there, they're not happy with what they hear, there's lots of things that they can do, and they will be informed of all of those things. I just have concerns about sending this information home to absolutely everybody before they've got a chance to walk through it with the school psychologist. But thank you.
Representative Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I think you may have stated this, sponsor, but there's nothing in this bill that would prevent the LEA or the school psychologist from sending a cover letter, perhaps, that would give a brief explanation of the what's in the report. And also even perhaps they could guide the parent so that they could get some extra information about what's in the report so that they could attend the meeting in the next few days with information about what is in that report. So there's no prohibition when it comes to the LEA or the school psychologist from providing that type of information as well. Is that correct?
Representative McCalman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairman Slater, you're absolutely correct. There's nothing that would prevent an LEA from sending a cover letter, sending out bullet points, providing a brief summarization. In fact, I would encourage the LEAs to do that because it is sensitive information that is being provided out. But yeah, to your point, you are correct.
Representative Slater.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'm aware that oftentimes even testing results go home, and sometimes those results may be a little bit difficult for parents to recognize if they're not in the field of education. But my experience has been that schools that send home narratives and explanations really help the parents to be properly informed of what is taking place with their student at the school. And so I appreciate this legislation. This is parent-friendly legislation. I think it will help our school systems as well as they communicate with parents of what is taking place at the school. Thank you so much for bringing this legislation.
Representative McCownman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Chairman Slater, thank you for those words and encouragement. I look forward to your support on this. Again, this bill is simply to equip our parents, give our parents a tool before when they go into that meeting, they have questions, and they may not know what they don't know, but at least they've had a chance to formulate questions on what they don't understand. So thank you for your comments, sir.
Representative Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question been called. Is there objection? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 861 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 92, 1 nay, 2 present, not voting.
House Bill 861 and received a constitutional majority. Everybody declare pass without objection. Most read series table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 219 by Representative Reedy and others relative to property.
Representative Reedy, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 219 on third and final consideration.
Representative Reedy moves passage by second. Mr. Clerk, call it First Amendment.
House State and Local Government Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Crawford, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This amendment makes the change that the Attorney General and the reporter may seek and collect a civil penalty. Move to adopt.
Chairman Crawford moves adoption. Committee Amendment number 1, properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of Committee Amendment number 1 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Reedy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill as amended requires foreign persons, businesses, and governments who report agriculture land investments to the United States Department of Agriculture under the Agriculture Foreign Investment Disclosure Act of 1978 to also file a copy with the Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture. With that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Reedy renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of House Bill 219 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Crawford, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 91, 5 nays.
House Bill 219 and received constitutional majority. Everybody declare passed without objection. Most read series table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 871 by Chair Lady Rudder and others relative to the use of escrow funds for condominium projects. Senate bills on the desk.
Chair Lady Rudder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 1079.
Chair Lady Rudder moves substitute form. Senate Bill 1079, probably second without objection. So ordered. Chair Lady Rudder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 1079 on third and final consideration.
Chair Lady Rudder moves passive. Senate Bill 1079 on third and final consideration. Probably second. Mr. Clerk, call for First Amendment.
House Commerce Committee Amendment number 1, Mr. Speaker, it's the same as Senate Amendment number 1.
Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're going to move to withdraw that thing.
Without objection, Committee Amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Chair Lady Rudder, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This legislation will allow residential condo developers to use the buyer's deposit for construction costs with the buyer's consent. This will enable the developers to move forward with approved projects more efficiently, helping to address the growing demand of housing in Tennessee. I renew my motion.
Chair Lady Rudder renews her motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1079, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Slater, aye. Lamberth, aye. Boyd, aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 85, 10 nays.
Senate Bill 1079 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion reads series table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 373 by Representative Shaw relative to tattoo artist licensing. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bills on the desk.
Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 497.
Representative Shaw moves substitute and form Senate Bill 497, probably seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I move passage of Senate Bill 497, third and final consideration.
Representative Shaw moves passage of Senate Bill 497 on third and final consideration. Probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House Commerce Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Vaughn, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're substituting conforming to the Senate now, so I guess I need to move to withdraw.
I don't think it's the same as.
Well, then, thank you for picking that up. I've been so busy withdrawing today, I just got into a habit. How about we move to adopt this amendment number 1, Mr. Speaker?
Chairman Vaughn moves adoption of committee amendment number 1, probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of adopting committee amendment number 1, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. The ayes have it. You adopted. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Shaw, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The amendment actually the amendment authorized that the out-of-state tattoo artists who have been licensed in a different state for a minimum of 10 years, who then relocate to Tennessee and receive a license to qualify to train under an apprenticeship for a period of 1 year to become qualified. It's basically what the legislation done. With that explanation, stand for any questions.
Representative Shaw renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was just going to ask the sponsor, since he's bringing this legislation, were you planning on getting some tattoos?
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I have already made an appointment with my tattoo artist. We're going to be getting about 5 over the next 2 or 3 days.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm told to ask, what locations will these tattoos be placed?
That's a need to know later. Representative Hardaway, you're recognized. Hey, that's one way to give him the pass right there. All right. Representative Doggett, you're recognized. Yeah, we got you. We got you. Representative Doggett, you're recognized. Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Out of curiosity, what kind of change are you making if this passes to what is current law?
Representative Shaw.
Thank you for that question. Thank you. Actually, now, if you move out of another state into Tennessee, you actually have to go through the process all over again to get licensed for Tennessee. This legislation allows you to come in and work 1 year under a qualified tattoo artist and receive your license after that time. That is a change of what the amendment does.
Representative Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So we don't have reciprocity of licensure from one state to the other currently?
Representative Shaw.
Thank you. That's my understanding. I'm carrying this bill for Senator Wally, but that is my understanding, whoever brought him the bill.
Representative Doggett.
And so someone could move in from another state and they just go through an apprentice program for 1 year. I noticed that they had to sign an affidavit that they had 10 years of experience. Was that just experience or professional experience?
Representative Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would think so, but it's 10 years of experience as a tattoo artist. And of course, if you can prove that, then you work 1 year under the apprenticeship of someone in the state and you on your own. That's what I understand it to do.
Representative Doggett.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Representative Barrett.
Mr. Sponsor, I was inclined to vote for your bill, but since they were so rude for you, I decided I'm going to have to vote against it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none. Any objection to the question? We're seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 497 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 91, nay 3 present, not voted.
Senate Bill 497, having received the constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. The motion reconsiders table. Mr. Clerk, call up next bill.
House Bill 745 by Representative Stevens relative to banking. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Stevens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 765.
Representative Stevens moves substitute and form Senate Bill 765, probably second without objection. So ordered. Representative Stevens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the passage of Senate Bill 765 on third and final consideration.
Representative Stevens moves passage of Senate Bill 765 on third and final consideration, probably second. Mr. Clerk, call for First Amendment.
House Judiciary Committee Amendment Number 1, same as Senate Amendment Number 1.
Chairman Farmer, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Same as Senate amendment. Move to withdraw.
Without objection, Committee Amendment Number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Stevens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill deals with banking. It does two things. First, it extends the amount of time a bank has to respond to garnishment orders from 1 day to 2 days. And second, it allows a prevailing bank to recover attorney fees in actions for check fraud claims under the UCC. And with that, I renew my motion.
Representative Stevens renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 765 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays, one present, not voting.
Senate Bill 765 having received a constitutional majority, everybody declare passed without objection. Most reconsider table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 368 by Representative Stinnett and others relative to student instruction. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Stinnett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to SB 319.
Representative Stinnett moves to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 319, probably seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Stinnett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of SB 319 on third and final consideration.
Representative Stinnett moves passage of Senate Bill 319 on third and final consideration, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House Education Committee Amendment Number 1, same as Senate Amendment Number 1.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is the same as the Senate amendment, so I move to withdraw and defer to the sponsor for the explanation.
Without objection, Committee Amendment Number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Stinnett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Tennessee Safe Haven law allows mothers in crisis to safely and legally surrender their newborns at designated facilities without fear of prosecution. Many young people are unaware of the option, which can prevent tragic outcomes for newborns and mothers who find themselves in difficult situations. By incorporating education about the Safe Haven law into the state curriculum, we can ensure all students are informed about this life-saving event. It helps us with preventing abandonment, supports young parents in crisis. I renew my motion.
Representative Stinnett renews his motion. Leader Lamberth, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Representative Stinnett, you are a kind and veteran member of this particular state and world, but I think you are very new in this body. Is this your first bill?
Representative Stinnett.
Yes, sir.
Leader Lamberth.
Well, good luck.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you. And I'm going to ask about the bill. I do understand what you're doing. And again, it's not that I have a problem with what you want to add to the curriculum, but we are adding it to the exact same class that all of this legislation is being added to, the class that we are tripling the standards for. And it's just concerning to me that we continually add things to this curriculum, but allow no more time for it to happen. So I'd like to vote for your bill, but that's my concern. We're just adding too much to this same curriculum.
Representative Stinnett.
Thank you for your concern. I renew my bill.
Representative Capley, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And sponsor, you're my seatmate. And we've sat over here for an hour and a half, and you haven't said a word to me about this bill. Is there something in this bill you're trying to hide from me?
Representative Stinnett.
Possibly it could be something that maybe you need to know about.
Representative Capley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I love you, sponsor.
That's a political thing. You got to put that away. Representative Moon, you're recognized. Chairman Moon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sponsor, is it true that you called a technical file on Representative Brock Martin?
Representative Stinnett.
Speaker, I renew my motion.
All right. Chairman Vaughn, did I see that hand go up?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it's with great appreciation. I appreciate the recognition. Mr. Sponsor, was your calendar messed up? Or are you just flexing because Dress Like Joe Towns Day is not until Monday? Thank you.
I think that's a one and done right there. I think we're good. Representative Towns, is there anything you need to add?
Mr. Speaker, now obviously I'm with the gentleman in the well. The one from Shelby County, the only thing he knows about dressing is chicken and dressing. So I'm with my man, and I support your bill wholeheartedly, okay? They give me grief, but we on the same team, okay? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. All right. Any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor, Senate Bill 319, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 88, 3 nays, 4 present, not voting.
Senate Bill 319 and received constitutional majority. I hereby declare it passed without objection. Motion reached series table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 737 by Representative Vital relative to vehicle registrations.
Representative Vital, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of House Bill 737 on third and final consideration.
Representative Vital moves passage. Second, Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
House Transportation Committee Amendment number 1.
Chairman Howell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Transportation Committee Amendment to 4925, move to withdraw.
Without objection, Committee Amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
House Transportation Committee Amendment number 2.
Chairman Howell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move to adopt and defer to the sponsor.
Chairman Howell moves adoption. Committee Amendment number 2. Properly seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none. All those in favor of Committee Amendment number 2 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. You adopt the next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Vital, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The legislative intent of this piece of legislation is to provide a formal legal avenue by which a county clerk's office may request assistance in order to continue to provide services to constituents during the time of such closures due to a natural disaster, public health emergency, or other temporary closure, also known as a mutual aid bill. This legislation is brought on behalf of the Tennessee State Association of County Clerks and the County Clerk Association of Tennessee. This bill is permissive in legislation and can be used only by written request. With that, I renew my motion.
Representative Vital renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Bill 737 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 96, no nays.
House Bill 737 has received constitutional majority. I hereby declare it passed without objection. The motion reached series table. Call next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1337 by Representative Garrett and others relative to charitable gaming. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute conform to Senate Bill 941.
Representative Garrett moves substitute form Senate Bill 941 without objection. So ordered. Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 941 on third and final consideration.
Representative Garrett moves passage of Senate Bill 941 on third and final consideration. Second, Mr. Clerk, call for First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, if any nonprofit, a volunteer fire department, et cetera, has a raffle that they do for one of their major fundraisers and they miss the deadline to make sure they get that certificate or that license from the Secretary of State, all this piece of legislation does is open that back up in case they miss that deadline so they can hold that raffle. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'll be glad to take any questions. Otherwise, I renew my motion.
Representative Garrett renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Warner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question been called. Is there objection? Seeing none, all those in favor of Senate Bill 941, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. As every member voted, does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 94, no nays.
Senate Bill 941 having received a constitutional majority, everybody declare passed without objection. The motion reads series table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 141 by Chairman Hale and others relative to consumer billing. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform with Senate Bill 41.
Chairman Hill moves substitute form Senate Bill 41 without objection. So ordered. Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
I move passage of Senate Bill 41 on third and final consideration.
Chairman Hill moves passage of Senate Bill 41 on third and final consideration. Second, Mr. Clerk, call for First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 41, or Senate Bill 41, addresses a common frustration among consumers who cancel services only to be charged for additional billing cycles. Basically, what this bill does, if you notify a provider during the first half of a billing cycle, then they keep bill you for that month and then an additional cycle. So it just cleans up that and talk with providers. Everybody's good. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Chairman Hill renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative McKenzie.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So the opposite side of that, if a person cancels their service on the 16th day of the month or the 17th day of the month, are you saying they're going to get charged for that month and the month after? And if so, why is that?
Chairman Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Currently, they're being billed for both months already. So this just says if you notify during that first half of the billing cycle, then they just only bill you for that cycle. And if it's in the last half, then it would be that plus that next month.
Representative McKenzie.
Thank you. And thank you for bringing this bill because I definitely see the intent of it. But, you know, as we know, we're in a digital world and canceling service is really just a click. So hopefully we'll continue to evolve this to where even if it's on the 20th or the 25th, since they can do it immediately, that they not cause the consumer to go a month. But thank you for bringing the bill.
Representative Johnson. Got it. All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 41, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Moon aye. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 97, no nays.
Senate Bill 41 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. The most read series table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 302 by Representative Martin relative to restrictions on vehicular use of public highways and streets. Mr. Speaker, Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Martin, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 248.
Representative Martin moves substitute form Senate Bill 248, properly seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 248 on third and final consideration.
Representative Martin moves passage of Senate Bill 248 on third and final consideration. Properly seconded. Mr. Clerk, call First Amendment.
House Amendment 1 by Representative Harris, Mr. Speaker, was timely filed.
Representative Harris, you're recognized.
Move to withdraw amendment number 1.
Without objection, amendment number 1 withdrawn. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Martin, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, House Bill 302 aims to bolster the safety and efficiency of Tennessee roads. It's currently a traffic violation for anyone to impede the flow of traffic by stopping or parking the vehicle on a street or highway. This bill goes one step further. If a vehicle is stopped for the purpose of soliciting employment, the violator would receive a Class C misdemeanor. If a subsequent violation is the cause of an accident, the violator would receive a Class B misdemeanor. Employment transactions are more appropriately served in places of business. The intent of this legislation is to disincentivize this kind of activity on public roads to help reduce things like traffic congestion and EMS response times. And this legislation does not impact employment solicitations on private property or parking lots. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to answer questions at this time.
Representative Martin renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Powell, you're recognized.
Thank you. I have a question. We have a paper here called The Contributor that a lot of homeless, those that are unhoused, will sell. I know there used to be a gentleman set up not too far from the Capitol. Would this apply to them? If they were just set up on a street corner, if somebody stopped and wanted to purchase a paper, or is this only for those soliciting employment? Would them trying to sell that paper, would they be exempt from this? If you could speak to that.
Representative Martin.
I don't think this pertains to that because it's about you impeding traffic with a vehicle to solicit business that's going to affect EMS and others that may need to use the roadway to go and help those that are in trouble. So if someone's on the sidewalk and they've got a newspaper, that's a different conversation.
Representative Powell.
Yeah. So again, sometimes they're on a corner, or they will stand in the median and transact business and sell the papers, and people will stop and raise their hand, and they'll give them a paper. I actually know a lot of these individuals and try to support them constantly because they're trying to become unhoused. And I think a paper like The Contributor does a great job. My concern here is that this would then target them. And I know you referenced in the bill, you're saying people are trying to solicit employment, but these are people that are just selling papers. In fact, our newspapers were once sold universally on street corners across the state. That's how a lot of people got the paper. So could you speak to that? Because I really don't want to do anything that would impact these people that are trying to escape homelessness.
Representative Martin.
And I am with you on that 100%. I don't want to do anything to impede people that are trying to find shelter with regard to that. That is not what this bill is about. This bill is not about the medium. The bill is about someone parking their car or stopping their car on a road or a highway to solicit business. It's not about a homeless person on a street corner with a newspaper or someone in a medium. It's a median. It's about someone that is impeding the traffic flow, which is critical. When you think about how Tennessee roads have increased the traffic count, I believe from 6.5 to 6.7 million between the years 2021 and 2023 alone. And we all know about the congestion that's happening on our roads. What we don't need is our roads to be less safe because individuals are trying to get business on public property and impeding traffic. If they want to get business, they can go to a parking lot, they can go to a driveway, they can go to a place of business where it'd be more appropriate to solicit the business. But to take your vehicle and stop it in the middle of the road would be inappropriate and would be dangerous.
Representative Powell.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Oftentimes you'll see a lot of civics organizations. People are trying to raise money for their youth sport, for, I see all sorts of types of people that will go out and try to solicit donations on our roads on a weekend. I've even seen our firefighters out with a boot trying to get donations. And we're talking about the people, the exact people that you're saying you're impeding. They themselves think it's okay to go out with a boot in traffic and collect donations. So I guess, and I understand, people will, try to stand out and we have a lot of bad actors, and I'm very familiar with some of these groups that claim, and we see them show up on street corners a lot, and they're basically running a professional scam. But we also have a lot of people that are trying to raise money for civic organizations, again, the firefighters, and people that sell the contributor. And my fear here is that this bill, they would be liable, and someone can say, hey, this person is trying to impede traffic, and then they would be subject to prosecution. So again, that's my concern with this bill, and appreciate your back and forth with me. Thank you.
Representative Martin.
Thank you, Representative Powell. I do not think that this bill relates to that, because that's about individuals who do not have a car parked in the middle of a road that is impeding traffic. When I've encountered those individuals on Hickson Pike in my community and for solicitation, they always have their cars parked out of the way. They're not hurting traffic, and yet people are able to buy the candy bar or put a few bucks in the boot. And so that is a different conversation than what I think this legislation is attempting to address. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I am happy to renew my motion.
Representative Martin renews his motion. Representative Harris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And sponsor, I know me and you have already spoken about this, and I had an amendment related to this legislation, but in part of your language, it says, as introduced, creates the offense of an occupant of a vehicle parking, leaving, standing, or stopping the vehicle on a street or highway and blocking or impeding the normal movement of traffic. In doing so, there was no exception, and it was brought to our attention. Giving you an example would be if we are having a parade that is considered blocking or impeding traffic. But in order to have the parade, you typically would get a permit of some sort from the jurisdiction. But there's no exception in this law for you to have had a permit. It just says that if you're impeding traffic, that you are creating some sort of offense. I use Memphis Police Department for an example. In our parades, they hold signs that say, join Memphis Police Department. That they are technically soliciting for business to people who are standing on the side of the street. So they're impeding traffic without an amendment to this language. Technically, they're in violation of this legislation. So again, this is something that you said we'll work on, and I just want to make sure that we brought this to attention that currently, right now, if someone's having a parade, even if they do have a valid permit, they're still technically in violation because there's no exception currently to this legislation.
Representative Martin.
Representative Harris, I look forward to working with you in the future about the language with regard to a parade. But every parade that I've ever seen has been moving, perhaps at a snail's pace, but it's moving. And this is not about a parade. People can get parade permits. This is about individuals that are stopping their cars or their vehicles in places that make it dangerous. Let's say that a young child down the road needs the emergency medical services, and someone has stopped their car on a road or a highway, and they've done this because they're looking for business. They're not looking for donations. They're not looking to promote the police department or other things, but they're looking for business. And what they're doing in that is they're making it dangerous so that that child down the road who needs emergency services vehicles, if what happens there, if that car, if the emergency vehicles can't get there, surely you don't think that that is appropriate, that we would allow people to park their cars to solicit business for that reason. And so I think it's one of those things, the parade is a separate issue. I'm with you on that. I don't think this bill is going to inhibit anybody from having a parade that is something that is slow moving.
Representative Harris.
And you're absolutely correct. I do believe that the gist of what you're actually trying to do is absolutely correct. It's just that the part that's not exempted from this is the parades, and not all parades are technically moving. Even in preparation for parades, we line up and you're standing in line waiting and you're impeding traffic for 20, 30 minutes before the actual parade starts. Half the parade is moving. Some people are still waiting to even get in line, but that is not an exception in here. And so again, I would love to work with you on this at the beginning of the next year.
Representative Martin.
And I commit to you, Representative Harris, that we will work together on that. I think that's important, but I think it's a separate issue. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I'm happy to renew my motion.
Representative McCallum, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question been called. Is there objection? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senate Bill 248 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 69, 17 nays, none present, not voting.
Senate Bill 248, having received a constitutional majority, everybody declare it passed without objection. Most for consider table. Let the journal reflect. Representative Gillespie is excused. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 355 by Chairman Powers and others relative to virtual school students. Mr. Speaker, Senate bills on the desk.
Representative Powers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 690.
Representative Powers moves substitute and conform to Senate Bill 690. Probably seconded without objection. So ordered. Representative Powers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 690 on third and final consideration.
Representative Powers moves passage of Senate Bill 690 on third and final consideration. Probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, call it First Amendment.
House Amendment 1 by Representative Johnson. Mr. Speaker, was timely filed.
Representative Johnson, you are recognized.
Thank you. What this amendment does, I hate that I have to bring it, but I feel like I should because of the way some online schools operate. Not the local online schools. They do a great job of keeping attendance, knowing who's there, knowing who's getting the work done. But at least one, and some of our statewide online schools continually skirt their duties when it comes to attendance and when it comes to grades. And I know that our school systems are so particular about attendance with our sports, with folks playing sports, and about grades, and that is important. But what I know is happening is online schools are not, the ones that are statewide, are not staying on top of those things. And so I think we are creating an unfair situation with those who are not held to the same standards with some of these statewide online schools when it comes to taking attendance. So I'm bringing in this amendment to make sure that those who we know continually skirt the issue of attendance are not able to do that. So your local LEA online schools are doing that, they are fine. This just accepts the state online schools from this bill. Moved for adoption.
Representative Johnson moves adoption, committee amendment number one, House amendment, not one, not committee. Probably seconded. Any discussion on the amendment? Leader Lambert, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Appears to be a good bill just as it is. I would move to lay that motion on the table.
That's proper motion, properly seconded. The parliamentary situation is Representative Johnson has moved adoption of amendment number one. Leader Lambert has moved that motion to the table. That cuts off all debate except for that of the sponsor. Representative Johnson, you are recognized.
Yes, again, I just want to reemphasize how hard our students work to play sports. They show up every day. They do what they need to do to get the grades and are held accountable by their local LEA. The state online virtual schools do not have that accountability when they take attendance, and also their issue with their grades at time. And so I feel like we are allowing two different types of students to play, and it's not fair to those who are showing up every day and getting the actual grades. And it's concerning to me because if the school is run in Union County, they can't keep tabs on who's showing up in Haywood County. If the student's not attending, they don't always mark that they're not attending, but they have no recourse. But our local online schools have that recourse because the kids are in that county. And so these kids don't have to have the same accountability. And I find that's a problem. So I ask you not to table this motion.
Parliamentary Situation, Representative Johnson has moved adoption of amendment number 1. Leader Lambert has moved that motion to the table. We're voting on the tabling motion. All those in favor vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 74, 22 nays.
The ayes have it. The motion to adopt amendment number 1 is tabled. Next amendment, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, no further amendments.
Representative Powers, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 690 requires an LEA to permit virtual school students to participate in interscholastic athletics if the virtual school students satisfy all the eligibility requirements. A few years ago, we just allowed homeschool students to participate, but did not include the virtual school students in that bill. And that's what this bill will do. It will just permit them to participate also. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Powers renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Warner, you're recognized.
Thank you, Representative Powers. I think I can support your bill here, but one quick question. If we have a student at home that's learning virtually and receiving vouchers here from the taxpayers in the great state of Tennessee, will they get to participate in the local LEA sports?
Representative Powers.
I don't think that I think they're still working on the whole program regarding school choice and regarding any type of assistance that they do. And they've not finalized the rules or anything on that. So I really can't answer that question.
Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Have you reached out to the commissioner and got her thoughts on whether the folks receiving the voucher, the kids that's learning from home, virtually receiving vouchers, would get to play in the public school sports?
Representative Powers.
No, I really haven't, because like I said, they're still formulating those rules, and those will not be out. My understanding is they won't be out until probably July or so. So those rules are still in the progress for looking into that. So I really can't answer that. I don't know if we need to go to our education. We could talk to Representative White, Chairman White, and maybe he could answer that. Could I defer to him, Mr. Speaker?
Representative Powers.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, all this is doing is just allowing virtual school students to participate in sports, just like homeschool students do now. So the same rules would apply. So it really doesn't have any effect to do with any kind of school choice or vouchers, as you call them. It really wouldn't be affected by that.
Representative Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, sponsor, when I read the legal summary of the bill, it does not exclude voucher students from participating, the virtual voucher students from participating in the local LEA.
Appreciate that. I think that was a statement, not a question. Representative McKenzie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So in terms of, help me understand what the process would be, because you said that they have to meet all the conditions as a homeschool student does. So in terms of vaccinations, my question is, because what I'm concerned with is, if they're not vaccinated for tuberculosis or polio or even the measles in one wrestling tournament, we could have widespread issues. But so you said earlier that they have to meet all the same standards. Does that include having the up-to-date vaccinations?
Representative Powers.
Thank you. And thank you for the question, but it's just the same that the homeschool students require right now. So they would have to go through the same eligibility requirements in order to do that. And I'm not sure if all of those, which particular vaccinations they have to have, but it would be that. And the TSSAA has approved this, so I'm sure that they would require whatever they'd have to with the homeschool.
Representative McKenzie.
Yeah, thank you for that. So the main ones I would say. So I appreciate that those are covered. My second and last question is, concern and then question about this is, not everyone's will go to virtual school for great reasons, because they're a better learner and it's in a closed environment or things of that nature. Some students might use this as an opportunity to transfer to different schools within the LEA. And I think they can stay within the LEA. But if I'm living on, the north side of town, but the basketball team on the south side of town is better, they could potentially use that in the way I read the bill. So my question is, are they forced to go? I had to use the word forced. Are they required to go if they want to participate in high school athletics? Do they have to go to the school that they would be zoned for?
Representative Powers.
Yes, thank you. Yes, they would. It should still follow the TSSAA rules as far as where they would be zoned and where they would transfer to. Yes.
Representative McKenzie. Representative Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move previous question.
Previous question being called. Is there objection? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 690 as amended, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 73, 22 nays, 1 present, not voted.
Senate Bill 690 having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare it passed without objection. The motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1020 by Chairman Russell and others relative to claims against law enforcement officers. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Russell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to Senate Bill 280.
Representative Russell moves passage. Bobby seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed? Representative Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of Senate Bill 280 on third and final consideration.
Representative Russell moves substitute conform Senate Bill 280 without objection. So ordered. Representative Russell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 280 protects law enforcement officers from frivolous lawsuits. If a law enforcement officer causes property damage or inflicts personal injury upon a person during the course of the law enforcement officer's official duties, he or she is immune from civil liability if at the time of damage or injury occurred, the person suffering the injury or damage was engaged in conduct that resulted in the person being convicted of the offense of resisting arrest. Mr. Speaker, I renew my motion.
Representative Russell moves passage of Senate Bill 280 on third and final consideration. Bobby seconded. Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Russell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I renew my motion.
Representative Russell renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none, any objection to the question? Oh. Representative Jones, you're recognized. Of Davison.
Thank you. To the sponsor, the concern with this bill is that this is a bill that is targeting the constitutional rights of our citizens under the Fourth Amendment. So currently under Tennessee law enforcement officers are generally immune from lawsuits under qualified immunity, meaning they can't be sued unless their actions violated clearly established constitutional right and a reasonable officer wouldn't have believed their conduct was legal. However, this immunity does not shield them from liability if they destroy property during a stop and frisk that violates a person's rights, such as the Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. So what your bill would be doing is that, say a law enforcement officer broke a window or damaged property not related to a crime, they would be immune. And the concern with this is that this is restricting not only the Fourth Amendment, but also citizens' rights and Tennessee's right to a jury to hear their grievance if their rights are violated. And I think this is contradictory to the oath we took to say that we would not go back on Tennesseans' rights. And so can you respond to those concerns?
Representative Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This does not change qualified immunity and does not apply if the officer's conduct was grossly negligent or willful misconduct.
Representative Jones.
Thank you. That was not my question. So we already have qualified immunity, which we agree with. That's what I just stated. But this is taking it a step further and saying that if an officer damages property not related to a crime, if they break into a window of a vehicle and then conduct an unreasonable search and seizure, they could not be civilly liable. And so since we already have qualified immunity, why are we taking this a step further if qualified immunity already exists in the state and gives them some type of immunity? This is taking it even further and saying that if you do something outside of the bounds of the constitutional rights, then you will have immunity from civil cases and lawsuits. Can you respond to that specific concern?
Representative Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is to help reinforce qualified immunity. With the constant attacks on our law enforcement, this will send a clear message that we stand with the police officers so they don't have the extra stress of potential lawsuits. While some elected officials want to defund the police and strip their immunity, this bill will reject that idea. There's no reason a law enforcement officer should have extra stress and worry about these lawsuits. Members, we will listen to every reason under the sun for a justification of voting against this bill. This bill supports our law enforcement. Mr. Speaker, if it comes to it, I'm willing to stand here and support our law enforcement until hell freezes over. Members, whether you live in the mountains of East Tennessee or the banks of the Mississippi or anywhere in between, I ask you to stand with me in protecting our law enforcement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Jones.
That was a very well-rehearsed monologue that you had written before you, but that did not answer my question. And so I don't know if we have answers to questions, or we just want to go through talking points that have nothing to do with the question I just asked. So good try, but my question again was, we already have qualified immunity. No one is saying that we are trying to come, you talk about defund the police. That was not even something brought up. So let's stay on what we're talking about. My question is about the rights of Tennesseans. You are continually trying to take away the rights of Tennesseans, regular people who let a jury decide. You're taking away their right to a jury trial, that they still have the right to go before a jury of their peers if their rights are violated and have their concerns held accountable if a law enforcement officer breaks their property, damages their windows, bursts into their home and destroys property in that process. We're taking away their right. Under the law, which you swore to uphold, every Tennessean is innocent until proven guilty. You're taking away that right and saying that if we go in your house and if their rights are violated, then that officer cannot be held accountable. That is wrong. And so you can make this all about these false narratives of attacking the police, but I'm standing here today because I'm concerned about the rights of Tennesseans who live in your district in Sweetwater and in my district here in Nashville. If their rights are violated, my libertarian friends, this is libertarians have reached out concerned about this issue. So you can try to make it about one black representative who you want to use racial code words for, but this is about all Tennesseans across the aisle, libertarians who are concerned about this, people on my side of the aisle, and yet you want to come here and say that qualified immunity is not enough and that if they violate their constitutional right under the Fourth Amendment, if they violate their constitutional rights, that they will not be held accountable, and that is a violation of our oath. So can you explain why this would be necessary and why Tennesseans should not have a right to a jury trial if their rights are violated? Can you respond to that without reading from your paper?
Somebody's mad. Representative Russell, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for that question. And this is how it is. An officer goes out there and performs their duties, and they got qualified immunity. However, there may be some instances when people file a lawsuit that they find a loophole in the law. And what happens is they are judged by a jury of their peers. But if the jury comes back and the judge says that they are found guilty, this right here will protect them for even going to court and being through that process. If you don't want to sue, don't resist arrest. Or if you do want to sue, don't resist arrest, basically what I'm saying.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is with regard in a limited capacity to that qualified immunity. Right now, you can only sue someone, such as a law enforcement officer acting in the scope of their employment, if they do something illegal if they're grossly negligent, or if they're acting outside the scope and, and committing willful misconduct, which are express exceptions in your own legislation. So why is your legislation necessary? As an attorney, no attorney is going to sue a law enforcement official who has qualified immunity unless they go above and beyond and fit within those narrow exceptions that makes them personally liable. So why is this necessary?
Representative Russell.
We hope no attorney will do that, but you never know. And in fact, a individual can go in and file their own lawsuit in some instances.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the individuals hire attorneys to file lawsuits for them most times. So no attorney there are no grounds for a lawsuit under any circumstances except in those narrow exceptions where a law enforcement official who's on duty, acting in the scope of their employment, who is protected by qualified immunity, they have that protection unless they break the law, unless they're grossly negligent or there's some willful misconduct that takes them outside of that protective bubble that's provided by their role as a law enforcement official that we all respect, we all commend for their service and duty. But unless they go beyond that, there is no cause of action. The law already protects them. So why, again, is this necessary?
Representative Russell.
Again, qualified immunity mostly protects over everything unless they act outside that scope that you described. This is in case of a loophole that somebody finds where they can sue.
Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But there is no loophole. The state law provides, there is no law. There is no loophole. The state law is very clear on this topic. If a lawyer or somebody was to file that lawsuit, it would be thrown out immediately unless it could be shown that it fit within those narrow exceptions. So again, I don't understand what we're trying to accomplish here. I understand you referred to these as frivolous lawsuits. Well, guess what? If frivolous lawsuits are filed, they get thrown out real quick. And so unless they fit within those narrow exceptions. And so if we're trying to go beyond the protections that are already in law with that qualified immunity, and let's say a police officer acts illegally, causing property damage, but that person is still convicted of a crime later, is this going to provide that law enforcement official civil immunity if they act illegally in the course of their duty?
Representative Russell, you're recognized.
This does not change any of that part. If they act illegally or willful misconduct, this does not change a thing.
Chairman Clemens.
All right, I just want to be very clear that we're not expanding this beyond what is already allowed in current law. And if your answer is correct, and that's not your intent, then I would argue that this law that you're passing today is unnecessary because this issue is already covered under current law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, sponsor.
Representative Russell.
I don't have anything.
All right. Representative Doggett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just looking for clarification in this. A call for a domestic situation, officers arrive, they hear something going on in the house, they make entry through the door is damaged, an individual is arrested. That individual could still sue the department, he just could not sue the officer for the damages that were made to the door when they effected the arrest.
Representative Russell.
That's correct. They can still sue the departments or agencies, yes.
Representative Doggett.
Good job. I stand with you and law enforcement.
Representative Travis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move previous question.
Previous question been called. Any objection? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 280, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 76, 14 nays, 5 present, not voted.
Senate Bill 280, having received the Constitution majority, everybody declare passed without objection. The motion reconsider table. Call the next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1173 by Chairman Williams relative to public purchases.
Representative Williams, at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to hold this on the desk.
With Without objection, on the desk, held. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Bill 1318 by Representative Reeves and others relative to the repeal date of the Access Tennessee Act of 2006. Mr. Speaker, the Senate bill is on the desk.
Representative Reeves, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to substitute and conform to SB 1304.
Representative Reeves moves to substitute and form Senate Bill 1304 without objection. So ordered. Representative Reeves, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move passage of SB 1304 on third and final consideration.
Representative Reeves moves passage of Senate Bill 1304 on third and final consideration. By second, Mr. Clerk, call up First Amendment.
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Reeves, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. SB 1304 moves the repeal date of TennCare program Access TN from June 30th of 2025 to June 30th of 2030. And with that, I renew my motion.
Representative Reeves renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Discussion. Leader.
I wanted y'all to know this is actually a bill that I filed with Leader Cochran, but there was no other way that we could get Representative Reeves to get a bill to the floor that wasn't on consent calendar, which he snuck one through on. So it is his first bill. Y'all please enjoy yourselves.
Representative Faison.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would Leader Lamberth come back to the well? Leader Lamberth? Whoa. Representative Reeves, would you yield?
Yeah, he will.
So I was just wondering, you're taking his lead on filing the bill. Were you also taking his lead on wearing the same outfit?
Who was that to?
The Representative Reeves.
Okay, Representative Reeves, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'll punch down my pocket square to match.
Representative Faison, Chairman Faison.
Did you consult with your wife and show her what the leader was wearing, make sure it was all right with her? Did you also wear what the leader wears?
Representative Reeves.
I renew my motion.
Representative Sapicki.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I've just received a text from the Federal Department of a Bureau of Investigation. They were looking for the whereabouts of Dr. Evil, and we found him.
Any objection to the question? Seeing none, we're voting. All those in favor of Senate Bill 1304 vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take Kumar aye. Let the journal reflect Representative Farmer's excused. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 93, one nay.
Senate Bill 1304, having received a constitutional majority, I hereby declare passed without objection. Motion to reconsider is tabled. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 480 by Chairman Rudd and others, a resolution to recognize and honor Coordinator of Elections Mark Goings for his ongoing service to the state of Tennessee.
Representative Rudd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to adopt HJR 0480.
Representative Rudd moves adoption, probably seconded. Mr. Clerk, any amendments been filed?
Mr. Speaker, no amendments filed.
Representative Rudd, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my honor to recognize Director of Elections Mark Goins. He has gone out of his way to ensure that 3 years in a row that our election process is rated #1 on election integrity in the state. And whether it be Republicans or Democrats, he has worked upon the request of any member to improve their bill and make sure their bill was constitutional and within state law and if it's needed. And he has been recognized, as you'll see in the resolution, he has been recognized throughout the nation for his work here. Other states come here for training how to improve their legislation all over the nation. He has led the way on bipartisan panels all over the nation in leading for election integrity. He is also a former member of the State Election Commission and a former member of this House. And this is in recognition of all he's done. Recently, on a conference call with governors from around the state, President Trump was asked by the governor of Louisiana, what can we do to improve election integrity in Louisiana? And he said, do what Tennessee does. They do it best in the nation. And that's something that all parties can be appreciative of here in Tennessee. With that, I renew my motion.
Representative Rudd renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Freeman, you're recognized. You pass. Representative Mitchell, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the old adage goes, he has one job. He has one job. So let's just go through it. 2012, we were 46th in the nation in turnout. 2014, we were 50th. 2016, hey, we had some improvement. We were 49th in the nation. Oh, and he got rolling in 2018. We got to 44th. Then 2020, 47th. But then he outdid himself in 2022. We finished 51st, even behind the District of Columbia. Folks, if he was an LEA, y'all would vote to take him over and turn him into a charter. You know, come on. So, I mean, you know, we can honor. The man stood at the Davidson County Election Commission and heard people tell him they committed voter fraud and forgery, and he did not report that to the district attorney. Election integrity does not exist. It's partisanship through and through. But if we want to honor this being dead last, let's do it.
Representative Rudd.
The comments by Representative Mitchell, but let's go over what his complaint is. He had a complaint about the signatures on the petition of his opponent. The Davidson County Election Commission, in a bipartisan vote, Democrats and Republicans voted to confirm 25 of the 26 signatures. The 26 signatures, which he's referring to, was not counted, and it was not counted also at the request of the family in question. Also, he filed a lawsuit over this, and a Democrat judge threw it out. Mark Goins, in fact, did meet with the district attorney, and the district attorney, a Democrat district attorney, has refused to prosecute. And that is not the fault of Mark Goins. He does not have prosecutable powers. He is a not enforcer. As a matter of fact, his powers over the Secretary of State, Mark Goins' powers over the election administrator and election commissions is very limited. Most of that power to oversee them is vested in the State Election Commission. And with that, I renew my motion.
Representative Mitchell.
Hey, well, thank you for that rundown, Mr. Rudd. But when someone who's put in a position stands there and listens to someone say, yeah, we forged those signatures on the petition, I don't care if it's one signature or 14, you know, they had over the amount. A felony is a felony, is it not? I think so. I think at the top of our petitions, it says, you know, it's a Class E felony. Mark Goins, sit there and listen to that. You can try to run me down and degrade me all I want, but, you know, the numbers speak for themselves. We're in the bottom year after year after year. And the man, his own staff told me he ran over here to the General Assembly with the file to get approval from legislators on whether he should put this lady on the ballot or not. You know, can he do anything on his own? No, he cannot do anything on his own except watch felonies be committed and do nothing about it. So you can talk about election integrity all you want, but the numbers speak for themselves. Dead last, 51st. You know, he has one job only, and he's not doing it well. But is he being partisan? Yeah. Is he being your lackey? Yes. He does that real well. He does it over and over again, but he runs over here and asks approval instead of doing his job, following the law. I want somebody who, if somebody says they committed a felony, I don't care if they're Democrat, Republican, or Al-Qaeda, they get prosecuted. But he looks to see if there's a D or R beside their name. I don't want that. If a Democrat violates the law, I want them prosecuted. If a Republican violates the law, I want them prosecuted. But he doesn't do that. He gets on the phone, he calls over here, he runs over to Cordell Hall building with his little files under his arm, and he scampers into several people's offices. And do you want me to say whose offices? I would love to if you'd like me to list them, but
Representative Rudd.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, he doesn't have prosecutable power regardless of what member or what race. In this particular instance, a Democrat election commission, bipartisan, a Democrat judge and a Democrat DA did not side with the member on this issue. He has gone out of his way, both as a member of the State Election Commission before he was appointed this position and as it to give us integrity and to tighten the laws. And he has worked with both parties to ensure that legislation passed is constitutional and well-written. That I renew my motion.
Representative Speaker Zachary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Move previous question.
Previous question been called. There's objection. We're on the board. All those in favor of previous question, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 72, 22 nays.
Previous question prevails. We're voting. All those in favor of House Joint Resolution 480, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Has every member voted? Does any member wish to change their vote? Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Aye, 73, 21 nays.
House Joint Resolution 840, having received constitutional majority, I hereby declare adopted without objection. The most for series table. Call up next bill, Mr. Clerk.
House Joint Resolution 46 for Chairman Faison and others.
Chairman Faison, at your desk.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move to hold HJR 46 on the desk.
You don't want to roll it? Without objection, held on the desk. Next bill, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, that completes the regular calendar.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Unfinished business.
Representative Doggett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the rules be suspended for immediate consideration of Senate Joint Resolution number 322.
Mr. Clerk, read the caption.
Senate Joint Resolution 322 by Chairman Doggett, a resolution honoring and commend Loretto High School boys basketball team upon winning the 2025 TSSAA Division I Class 2A state championship.
You've heard the caption. Any objections? Without objections, the rules are suspended. Representative Doggett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to concur with Senate Joint Resolution number 322.
Representative Doggett moves to concur in Senate Joint Resolution 322. Probably seconded. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare concurred in without objection. Most for series table. Chairman Clemens, you're recognized.
The S. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the rules be suspended for immediate consideration of SJR number 258.
Mr. Clerk, read the caption.
Senate Joint Resolution 258 by Chairman Clemens, a resolution to recognize the Metro Nashville Public Schools visual and performing arts team and its Emmy-winning documentary, Every Student Known the Creation of an Anthem.
You heard the caption. Any objections? Without objection, the rules are suspended. Chairman Clemens.
Move to concur in Senate Joint Resolution number 258.
Chairman Clemens moves to concur in Senate Joint Resolution 258. Probably seconded. Any objection to the question? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare concurred in without objection. Most for series table. Chairman Clemens, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the rules be suspended for immediate introduction and consideration of House Joint Resolution 507.
Mr. Clerk, read the caption.
House Joint Resolution 507 by Chairman Clemens, a resolution to honor and commend the Hillsborough boys basketball team upon winning the 2025 TSSAA Division I Class 4A state championship.
Heard the caption. Any objections? Without objection, the rules are suspended. Chairman Clemens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of House Joint Resolution number 507.
Chairman Clemens moves adoption of House Joint Resolution 507. Properly seconded. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Joint Resolution 507 say aye, aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare adopted without objection. Most for series table. Representative Hardaway, you're recognized.
Thank you, Speaker. I move for the rules to be suspended for the immediate introduction and consideration of HJR 513.
Mr. Clerk, read the caption.
House Joint Resolution 513 by Representative Hardaway and others, a resolution to honor the memory of Alfred Bertram Kate Jr.
You heard the caption. Any objections? Without objections, the rule is suspended. Representative Hardaway.
Thank you, Speaker. I move for adoption of H.R. 513 to honor Coach Cates, war hero, and basketball, football, tennis, and baseball coach for Central V High School.
Representative Hardaway moves adoption of House Joint Resolution 513, probably seconded. Any objection to the question? Seeing none. All those in favor of House Joint Resolution 513 say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I declare adopted without objection. The motion reconsider is tabled. Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After consulting with the Minority Assistant Leader, I move that HB 726 be heard in the Cities and Counties Subcommittee next week.
For the motion, any objections? Without objection, so ordered. Leader Lamberth.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do anticipate objection on this motion, but I move that House Bill 811 be heard in the Civil Subcommittee next week.
For the motion, any objection? There's objection. We're on the board. All those in favor of House Bill 811 being heard in Civil Sub next week, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 71, 22 nays.
Motion
Prevailed.
Motion prevails. Leader Lamberth. Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, we have a message from the Senate. Mr. Speaker, I'm directed to return to the House. House Bill 623, substitute for the Senate bill on the same subject, amended and passed by the Senate.
Monday's message count. Representative Johnson.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to recall House Bill 908 from the Senate. This is legislation that what we voted on consent calendar didn't get to have a discussion on the floor. And in committee, the question was asked, does this raise the cap on home mortgages? And the answer to the question was no, which it did raise the cap from 8.5 to 11.5. And there is also a question on whether or not it refers to first home mortgage loans, which many say that it does. And I think we should have that discussion.
Thank you, Representative Johnson. That's a proper motion, properly seconded. There's objection. We're on the board. All those in favor of recalling House Bill 908 from the Senate, vote aye when the bell rings. Those opposed, vote no. Barrett, no. Mr. Clerk, please take the vote.
Ayes 23, 70 nays.
Motion fails. Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Scheduling and procedural announcements.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Speaker, there's been several schedule changes for committees next week. On Tuesday, 9 a.m., Ag in Room 1, Cities and Counties in Room 2. Tuesday, 11 a.m., Education, Room 1, Criminal Sub, Room 2. 1:30 on Tuesday, Health in Room 1. 3:30 on Tuesday, Finance, Room 1. Wednesday, 9 a.m., Commerce, Room 1, Criminal Sub, Room 2. 11 a.m., Judiciary, Room 1, Finance Sub, Room 3. 1:30, Wednesday, State and Local, Room 1, Civil Sub, Room 2, Insurance, Room 3. 3:30, Education will meet for a second time in Room 1.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
Roll call.
Roll call. Ms. Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Speaker, 92 members present.
Next order, Mr. Clerk.
That completes the regular order, Mr. Speaker.
Leader Cochran, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House stand in recess until 2 p.m. on Monday, March 31st, 2025.
Without objection, the House stands in recess till 2 p.m. on Monday, March 31st, 2025.